There's a well-known story about some ghosts visiting a man at this time of year to help him change his ways. What better way to enjoy the upcoming holidays than for Dan to embody the ghost of the past, John, me to be present, and Kelley to be our ghost of yet to come? Do supernatural visitations happen? Can those visits help folks to change who they are? Have you had an encounter that you can't explain that made you change how you think about everything? Give us a call because the show is about to start.
Oh, poor John.
Smiling.
John. John almost never does the intro. And the one time he does the intro, we don't clip away. We don't switch away in the time that we need to, but that's okay.
I felt like my smile just progressively got bigger. Now my face really hurts.
That was something else. Can I just say too, actually first, let me introduce myself. I'm Objectively Dan. This is Truth Wanted, the live call-in show that happens every single week, Fridays at 7 p.m. Central Time. We talk to you folks at home about what you believe and why. And if you'd like to call us, you can certainly do that. The lines are in fact open. It is 512-991-9242, or you can call through your computer at tiny.cc/call-TW. And Truth Wanted is a product of the Atheist Community of Austin, a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to the promotion of atheism, critical thinking, secular humanism, and the separation of religion and government. And every single week, folks, I'm always joined by a special guest. This week's no different. I got two of them on the show with me. We got Kelley, Laughlin, and John, the Skeptick, joining me for the last show of 2024. Fellas, how you doing? Great intro, John. Fantastic.
Really? Although the pause of my face.
It was a very dramatic pause.
I liked it.
You know?
I feel like that's just setting me up for next year's hate comments against me. Well, we had to look at John's face for that long.
No, so if you listen to this show and you listen to the audio version of the show, like on Spotify, right? They if you don't have Spotify Premium or whatever, like they'll play ads at the beginning. And John, your voice acting is just so fucking immaculate. I worry that people are going to try to skip ahead as soon as you talk because they think there's another fucking ad going. Like, that's sorry. How. No, you're so clean with it, dude. Like that intro was. I was almost going to do the intro, which is a shame because first of all, John wrote it, but also, come on, listen to that voice, beautiful, beautiful.
Stop it.
We wouldn't want it any other way. But folks, like I said, this is the last episode of Truth Wanted for 2024. Next week, we'll have a little something special for you, but it will be all stuff that's not live. So if you want to get your calls in, if you got your conspiracies, if you got your religious claims or lack thereof, whatever you want, just call in because we want to hear from you. We do have some open lines and we want to talk to you. And of course, we got 3 people on the pod today, which, is not something we do every week. So it's a special time is what I'm trying to say. So special time should mean a special call, right? I think
You'd
the
hope
logic
so.
sound, right?
Maybe we will have the call that changes everything for us, as is the way with the 3 ghosts that visited Scrooge.
Right.
Yeah, maybe this will be the week that we get convinced that ghosts are real.
Yeah.
We should have all dressed up as ghosts.
We should have.
Yeah, that could have been cool.
Yeah.
Oh well.
I didn't plan that.
It's too much planning for a bit.
Right.
That probably wouldn't pay off, I think.
No.
But hey, the prompt for this week. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself because I have to talk to you guys about a little segment that we do every week, and it is the We Want the Truth segment, our WWTT. Kind of doing a whole WWJD vibe. I don't know if anyone's actually picked up on that, but that's like the intention of why we say the acronym part. But anyway, last week we asked you guys what really triggered the war on Christmas, and here are our favorite answers from that. Number 3 comes from Angelica Atheist, who said, what really started the war on Christmas? The New Jersey drones were taking all of the elves' jobs. Incredible stuff. I was just saying, I forgot because I meant to read last week's comments and I did not, and I'm sure y'all had some spicy takes about the drone situation and everything else. So maybe we'll talk more about that today. But man, last week was a really killer episode. If y'all haven't watched last week's, it went a little off the rails. But number 2 in our answers this week comes from Godwin_7, who says the war on Christmas obviously began when St. Nicholas said he was more popular than Jesus. And I wonder, is that true today? Because, they do those polls where it's like, oh, the McDonald's logo is more recognizable than the cross. Like, you think that works with like Jesus and Santa Claus?
I feel like if you ask that question in March, Jesus is going to win it. But this time of year, I'm sorry, jolly old Saint Nick, he's going to win it.
Yeah.
It's hard to say, though. I think a lot of people would lie and say Jesus.
Yeah.
Ooh,
maybe.
you know what though? You're probably right. Yeah, that's like a question people would lie on polls just to inflate the numbers. Talk about election fraud. That's it right there. Polling for who's more popular. But our number 1 answer this week is really good. It comes from Know What, and they said it began with the forging of the great rings. 3 were given to the elves, the craftiest and most oppressed of Santa's workers. So that's
awesome.
That is our answer. It's our number 1 answer for this last week. Thank you to everybody who contributed to this segment, because you all are very funny, of course. And the prompt for this week is going to be, what was the cringiest thing that happened to you in 2024? No political answers. That's part of the prompt. Okay, so that's what we got for this year, or it's our last question for this year, I should say. So again, if you haven't commented all year, hey, why not do it just this one time, just for us, please? Pretty please. You want me to beg? Because we can do that. Just kidding. I'm not gonna beg, but I will ask nicely. It's a good thing to do. What was the cringiest thing that happened to you guys in 2024?
I lost my job because I didn't believe in the same thing as the people that fired me. So I guess that's kind of cringy.
Oh man, yeah. Have we talked about that on the show? I don't know that we have.
No, maybe.
Some folks might not be aware of that, but yes, you were in fact persecuted because of your beliefs or lack thereof.
Yeah. That was pretty cringy.
Yeah, I would say so. I would agree with you in that. But you're doing something new now, and it's better. Yeah, okay,
Yes.
so that's good. So there's a happy ending to that story.
Yeah. Eventually, it only took like 9 months, but that's fine. 9 months of tears and worry. That's fine.
Yeah.
Cringy.
Well, I'm happy that you are in a better place then, because when that happened, I, like everybody else, was really shocked, but unfortunately not surprised in some ways, especially for where you're at.
Welcome to Kentucky.
Yeah, that's definitely a thing. What about you, Kelley? You got a cringy thing that happened to you this year?
Yeah, but I don't want to bring everybody down. But yeah, my mom died this year, so that was probably the cringiest thing for me.
Oh, Kelley, that's not what cringy means.
It was pretty cringy.
What? That's not. Oh my God.
Wait, what was really funny was somebody like going through her papers. We were finding out all these things about her that we didn't know. And some of that was pretty cringy. Like we found out that, and so I'm including this as like part of my mom dying. But like one of the things we found out that she was a bigamist for 6 years.
What?
Yeah, my mom was a bigamist for 6 years.
How did you figure that out?
Because we found her divorce papers from her first husband, who was my father. And in the divorce papers, it mentioned that they had a son who was 7 years old. And I was like, wait a minute, that should say 7 months. That's a typo, because they split up right after I was born. And then we looked at the date on it, and sure enough, she didn't divorce my father, her first husband, until after she'd been married to her second husband for 6 years.
Wow, there's Laughlin family drama.
So that was kind of cringy. And then what was even cringier was going through some of the letters that she left behind, where she wrote down like explicit sexual things that she had experienced. So that was kind of cringy reading that.
All right, Kelley.
Your mom's sexual exploits.
That was not where I was expecting that to go.
I was just gonna say about me saying something stupid on the show or something, but you take the cake, Kelley. You win. Okay. I can't beat that. So anyway, for the folks at home, you should leave your comment below. And please, unless it's funny or no, I'm not even going to say that. Just don't involve people dying, please. That's a real vibe killer. I don't want to have to read the comment next week or no, the week after and then be like, oh, yeah, this is the thing. Okay. But, cringy things, not political, because we want you to be creative. We want to be something from your personal life. That's the goal here. And, leave them below and we'll take a look at it. But damn, Kelley. Okay. Shit, that's,
wow.
Don't ask me questions again, right?
Yeah. All right. Oh, that's that's a lot to follow up on. I'm not gonna lie. How do we transition from that?
I don't think we can.
What are we talking about now?
I can just stare at the camera again for another.
Yeah, you're really good at that.
I'm not doing that again.
Well, folks, this is the like I said, last show of the year. I have to say, this year in terms of Truth Wanted has been really interesting. We've had a lot of cool people on the show. We've had a lot of interesting conversations and a lot of folks that have become like repeat callers this year, which has been really interesting. I don't know. I've been pretty happy with what we've done so far. And we got to 25,000 subscribers, which is really cool. So hopefully we do double that this next year. I mean, why not at this point, right? I, of course, have to thank everybody that helps with the Atheist Community of Austin, that helps with the show every single week. But also viewers at home, for you guys watching and supporting the show and continue to make this show as awesome as it is, because it wouldn't be anything without any viewers, right? So thank you for that from the bottom of my heart. I don't know. What about you guys? How do you feel about this year?
I'll give at the bottom of my heart too, because it means a lot to me to be able to come on and just hang out with really lovely, like-minded people and just talk to people about stuff. And it doesn't matter what the stuff is. It's just a good time. And I'm like, I know it's not Thanksgiving anymore. We're going on to another holiday, but I am thankful to be involved with something like this. Yeah, it's true. And I'm glad you get to come here too, John, especially since you got a lot going on with your family right now. You're having to deal with stuff that I'm really glad I don't have to deal with, at least right now. So, making it on Friday night, that means a lot. We appreciate it. It's also a bit of an escape for me. So I'm glad. Yeah.
I hear you.
A little bit of time to myself.
Oh, we already got a super chat here who's responding to our chat here. It is from Nero, who says, cringiest event this year for me, dropped out of college in spring for financial reasons, forgot all I learned, in debt. Oh no, it went off the screen there. Let me see if maybe, 12? Oh, there we go. In debt for $12,000 for it all. And they gave $5. Why are you giving $5 to us? You need to put that $5 towards your debt of $12,000. Yeah, oh my goodness.
$12,005 in debt.
Nero. Come
To
on.
be fair, $5 isn't going to put too big of a dent in that 12 grand.
I hear you, but that makes me feel bad now. I appreciate it. I'm not going to refund it or anything, but like, no, I don't receive any of that money. That all goes to the ACA, right? But anyway, take it up with them if you want it back. That's all I'll say. No, that is you know what? You went to college though, and you may think you forgot some stuff, but maybe it's still in there and you just got to activate it. Right. Maybe it's about the friends you made along the way. Do you ever think about that? It's also
transitioning from short-term memory to long-term memory. You just give it a chance. Give it a chance.
Give it a chance. Give it a shot. I'm starting to become one of those people where I'm like, maybe college, obviously college isn't for everybody, but like the way that I see the job market now these days, I'm just like, man, I don't know if you really do need a college degree for a lot of shit these days. You really don't. You really don't. So, hey, good luck to you, Nero. Hopefully life, helps you out next year, 2025. I'm rooting for you. But anyway.
It was strange to me, like in the 1980s, when they started transitioning our economy to a service economy, that they were also encouraging people that they had to go get a college education to work in the service industry. And that was it. It was just seemed like so not smart.
I just, I came from a generation where it was like, everybody needs to get a degree. Everybody has to get a degree. And if you want to do anything, and all my friends have degrees and are in debt and aren't working the greatest jobs ever. Mm-hmm. I'm actually really lucky in that regard, because I switched to a different person this year and I got a title change, and 2024 has been really good to me. And I wish that, those blessings I've gotten for everybody else, because shit's fucking hard out there, especially around this time of year. So I don't know. I'm not trying to make this into like a maudlin sort of episode. It's just kind of naturally became the way. I think it all stemmed from Kelley, so I'm blaming this on you, dog.
I'll take the blame.
Anyway, I don't know where the fucking go from here, guys. You guys want to jump into some calls? You want to just get
Let's
right
do
into it?
Sure. Come
right.
on, let's start. That's the only way we can go.
Okay. All right. Before we get to the calls, I do have to thank the awesome patrons, because every single week we're giving a shout out to the patron of the week. We give a shout out to everybody that donates on the Patreon. So if you want to become patron of the week, just donate to the Patreon and we'll get to you. But this week's patron of the week is going to be Dawn Nelson. Thank you so much, Dawn Nelson, and thank you to everybody that donates on the Patreon. You guys are amazing, and that's tiny.cc/Patreon TW if you want to support the show. Like I said, that doesn't go to me, that goes to the Atheist Community of Austin, and it says, hey, this is a show worth supporting. So if you feel that way, donating on Patreon is a great way to show your support. And with that out of the way, folks, let's get to our first call of the night. First one we got on the docket, Race Bannon. Race Bannon calling in from Texas. Race Bannon, you are live on Truth Wanted. What's going on?
Great name.
What a great panel. The floating circle, Mr. Geology, and Dan the Man. I'm happy to get in tonight. This is a great
Wow.
It's a panel. It's a panel, I'll tell you that. Yeah. It is a group of human beings. So happy to hear from you, Race Bannon. What's going on?
Great cover on the delay there. If I were you, I would have just sunk down in the chair out of sight.
I should have.
You did
Or
a great cover.
gradually got closer to the camera, just so it was eyeball and nothing else.
Great. Well,
we're supposed to be dead quiet during those intros, and I just had to fill the space in with my laughter to help John, because it was just getting to that point, like a frog in a boiler plate. He was ready to jump.
I was.
Anyway, what can we do for you, Race?
Well, I wanted to talk about the final experiment that happened this weekend and the general anti-science sentiment. But before I do that, I had a challenge for the ACA. I've stumbled across a number of great channels, Holy Kool-Aid, Simon Dan, the usual Apologia, all the regulars. But would somebody at ACA put together a master list of YouTube channels that I should be following? Can somebody do that, please?
There is one around somewhere. And I can find one and hand it to the ACA so it comes from them and they can vet it. But there is like a very comprehensive list around somewhere.
I think that gets really weird really fast, because I don't know if the ACA as a nonprofit wants to endorse that's true. Individual YouTubers. I think there's an issue with that. We're okay with doing it as hosts because we're like volunteers, right? We don't officially represent the ACA in its position. So I can tell you, who I think is cool. I just had lunch with Holy Kool-Aid like a few weeks ago, and he's doing all right. So, that's a guy that I definitely think is cool. But, I think if you go on the Discord, which is also a fan run space, there's probably like people there who could tell you who to watch, and I'm sure they got something on there, but I don't know.
Of course, as well, there's non-profits and Atheist Experience and Talk Heathen.
Yes.
Yeah. Right. Sure yeah. So there's a list of stuff.
Start your list with those three. Yep.
Yeah. We got like 6 years of Truth Wanted episodes as a backlog, so you can start with that, I'd say.
Okay. Well, the reason I called I'm sure all of you are familiar with the final experiment, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yep.
so
Very fun. For those who aren't were watching at home, so basically, you know how flat earthers are like, hey, Antarctica is like not a thing, or is a thing, but like is hidden for parts of it, whatever. Basically, a group of people paid for a bunch of flat earthers to take a boat and go see Antarctica themselves, and that's what just happened recently. So
yeah.
Well, and to prove that the sun does not set at this time of year.
Yes, that was part of it too. Yeah.
Flat.
But also just a cruise to Antarctica would be kind of cool as well. Yeah. I feel like that's what I would be there for. I already know the sun sets. You know what I mean? You don't have to do that for me, but I guess for them, that's a big deal.
Well, that's the tip of the iceberg. all the photos we have of distant galaxies and detailed photos of planets and et cetera, apparently that's all fake.
Right.
Apparently,
Of course.
we spent decades and decades making fake photographs of the Andromeda galaxy and et cetera, et cetera. Why would anyone do that? What's the point? If we're in a terrarium, if there's a dome, a firmament, why would anybody waste the time to convince people that there are extraterrestrial objects? It makes no sense whatsoever.
I do think that's like one of the bigger
From the
weaknesses.
conspiracy.
Yeah, that's one of the bigger weaknesses of the flat Earth position. Besides the fact that it doesn't make any fucking sense, like besides like the very obvious scientific stuff, like the motivation just isn't there. Like I don't like. There's a lot of conspiracy theories where you can at least you can assign a motive, right? But like here, I don't even know what the motive is. What are you saying? Oh, they don't want to know. The most common thing I've heard, right, is that in the Bible says that the earth is flat. That's what some of them will say. A lot of flat earthers are also young earth creationists. There's like a commingling in that space. So the idea is that as part of Satan's agenda, right, to teach you of the secular world and to keep you from knowing Christ, is to also teach you of a globe earth rather than a flat earth, which is a stretch, but like, that's the most that willingly can make sense, I guess, because why would you cover that up otherwise? I just doesn't really do anything. Doesn't make sense to me.
Well, anyone else want to speak on that? Because I can't believe that they don't know that scientists are hugely competitive. All it would take is one or two scientists to step out and say, look, I approve of the flat earth, you've all been lied to. That guy would get the Nobel Prize. Scientists constantly try to prove each other wrong. That's how science works.
That's true.
Yep,
That's true.
sure
The problem is you become a flat earther as soon as you say that. So I don't know. You do lose a little bit of credibility, I think, and rightfully so, I'd say.
Scientists are very competitive, though. I will give you that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that is kind of how science works. You don't try to prove yourself right. You try to find ways to make yourself wrong. And if you can't make yourself wrong, it becomes accepted. It becomes accepted as a hypothesis, theory, or fact. But in the larger view, the incredible upsurge of anti-science sentiment has real-world effects. Look at the vaccine deniers. Jesus Christ. Not trusting what is established fairly well as reality can kill people.
Yeah, that's definitely a big problem with part of it, and people will take advantage of anti-vaccine sentiment or vaccine hesitancy, as they call it, sentiment, right? People who don't really care either way, right? Who care about winning a constituency over. I regret not mentioning this last week because there's a lot of competing ideas when talking about the drone sightings that have recently been happening. And one thing that has been cited in the drone's favor, right, or in the drone sightings favor as something that should be something we should be worried about, is there are a lot of politicians that have come out and said, hey, this is something we should be worried about. The mayor of such and such and the governor of such and such has all been saying, hey, we need to take this stuff seriously. And the truth is they may actually care and they may not give a shit at all, because either way, when you appeal to that and you say there's a base that actually cares about this, you are winning over some votes, right? So there is like a political motive to both anti-vaccine sentiment and the drone sighting stuff, and even an anti-science stuff to a degree, because there are people who do feel strongly about that stuff and they will win those votes over. It turns out feeling really strongly about that stuff gets more people to vote than just like accepting that science is real. So, that's the world we live in.
Yeah.
So science, for the most part, is not sexy. It takes a lot of time and a lot of effort to understand some of the where we are in the realm of science these days. And most people would rather watch Ancient Aliens.
Sure.
They don't want good explanations. They want fun explanations.
Sure.
Maybe I'm cynical. I don't know, but
That's why we've got great people like Professor Brian Cox who start presenting all this stuff. And I'm just like a bit of a fangirl when it comes to Professor Brian Cox. I love him.
Yeah,
and I
people
would
like
love to be
Forrest.
with him.
Brian
And Forrest, right.
Yeah.
Right.
Brian
People who
Cox.
can really communicate science to others. And what's
Make it
really
fun.
good is they're able to communicate it well to young people so that they grow up with a thirst for science. I took my son once to an open house at the Fermi Lab. We got invitations because I was a local scientist, and they sent me some. It was really cool, and we got a tour of the collider. It was amazing, but they had a presentation with a guy who was doing the liquid nitrogen, freezing balloons and breaking them as glass. And my son was about 8 years old, and he just stood wide-eyed through the whole presentation. And I was just talking to him a couple of weeks ago, and he told me that was what really interested him in being a scientist today. So yeah, it's, if you can communicate well to children like both of those can, that's a big plus to further science in the future, that we're building young scientists by doing that kind of a thing. I wish I was much better at talking to children than I am, but yeah, it's good to see people out there doing it.
Yeah, well, they're unruly and smelly. They're delicious if properly cooked, but I have not that much use for children. To John's point, yes, Brian Cox is amazing, and he has a couple of books available for free on YouTube. Everybody should listen to Brian Cox. He's a great explainer.
I find myself just sitting watching like reel after reel of actually Forrest as well, but Brian Cox. The sheer numbers of the amount of stars just in the Milky Way galaxy, and then like the breakdown of all that information. That's sexy to me. I find that sexy.
Well, you and I have different tastes in what's sexy, John. I'll put it out there. But I agree with Race's sentiment, though, that a lot of the majority of like scientists' work every day is boring to most people, right? It's like you get to see, we get the privilege of watching PBS's Space Time on YouTube because a bunch of people who've been doing the work for that for years, we get the fun communication parts of the science. So I don't work as a scientist, and thank goodness I don't. I'd be terrible at it. I would get the numbers mixed up and something would go wrong. It would be really bad. So I don't know. I'm thankful for the folks that do the work that is boring, so that folks like Forrest can have the fun parts of also doing science. He is a real scientist. He does science, but like doing fun YouTube stuff, because that part's way cooler and more interesting to me than having to type up reports every day on observations. I don't know. That's just me, though.
We're lucky to have as many good science communicators as we do, starting with Isaac Asimov, and then Carl Sagan, and now Neil deGrasse Tyson and Brian Cox. It's important to break that stuff down so some of us little chickens get a few crumbs.
Right.
Yeah. I agree with you. Hopefully the world will also agree with us one day. It doesn't seem to be in our favor at this point in time, but I don't know. There's waves to these things. I feel like public sentiment can change and probably will.
People are attracted to the fun stuff, the ancient aliens, the pyramid power, the cryptid sightings, etc. And those are fascinating, but they require no mental acuity whatsoever. Real science is much more fascinating to me.
Yeah, again, it's the paperwork that does it for me, man. I ain't about it. But you know what? Again, you want to be on that team? You want to be on that, doing that work? That's cool. That's all you. I'll let you do it, Race. Not me, though.
I have one last thing.
Go ahead.
Daniel pushed back on me a little bit last week in last week's show. He called me out by name, which I don't mind. That's fine. He uses his name.
To be fair, Race, you called him out by name first, okay? So if anybody was starting some shit, it was you, okay? Let's call a spade, okay?
I never used mine. He uses his name, Daniel. I didn't use mine.
Oh yeah, but but you made comments about him though. You were making comments about him, and he responded to your comments, is what I'm saying.
Well, and that's why I want to respond to him now. He was big about the insectoid. He was all about the insectoid on Mars. that he
Yes.
that he sent you photos of the rock formation that he claimed was an insect, and last
Correct.
week he totally backed off that. He totally went away from the insect on Mars and is now on some other moon of Jupiter or something. So if he can prove there's an insectoid on Mars, which he sent you photos of, I'd like him to respond to that. I'd like him to reaffirm his belief in an insect being on Mars.
Oh my God! Am I hosting a proxy war via call-in show right now? Because like this is, you put me in a weird spot here, Race. I'm just the messenger. You understand? Like this needs to be put on an internet forum somewhere. Okay.
This kind of reminds me of the competitiveness among scientists trying to outdo each other.
Right. Through the worst medium possible.
Well, last week's show, I said I'm glad that you're giving him oxygen to continue to espouse his beliefs. So yes, I invite debate.
I mean, that's great, Race. I just, maybe one day, here's what we got to do. We got to have like 2 calls in at the same time and then have the callers just fight it out. And then we don't have to do anything that week. That'd be kind of sweet, huh?
Like when when you call 2 fast food chains and you get them to order from each other like that.
Right, exactly. Yes. That's exactly what it needs to be. Here's what needs to happen too. I think Daniel should post all of his evidence on a web page somewhere. He needs to get listen, the crustier the better. I'm talking like GeoCities page up with all the photos, right? And like I want handwritten HTML. Okay, like that's what I want to see. And like that way we can all look at it together at the same time and have a discussion on it. If we leave comments on it, that'd be even better, So I don't know, something to think about there. But maybe Daniel will call back today and also respond to you. We'll see. But Race, I think that's all the time we got for you now. Anything else you want to add before we let you go?
I do have one quick question for Kelley. Kelley, I just learned this week about the parrot sculpture on Mars. Do you know about that?
No, that's a good one. Now you got me totally curious. I'm looking it up right now.
Long parrot. Just Google parrot sculpture on Mars. You'll be delighted.
Nice. Thank you so much. I love stuff like this. Oh wow, yeah, look at that.
Thanks, Race.
This was a new one to me.
Yeah, have a great Christmas.
Have a Merry Christmas and a.
Yep, you too. Have a great holiday season. We'll see you next time and next year. For that matter. I said Christmas that time too. I didn't even say happy holidays. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not even a good atheist.
About that. But so because people do get slightly offended when you don't say Merry Christmas, right?
Yeah, sure.
Where I'm from, merry means tipsy. So when people wish me a Merry Christmas, I'm just like, what, you want me to get drunk? Okay.
I mean, yes, but also, okay.
I'm down with that. That's fine. I'll have a Merry Christmas.
I just don't know anybody that gives a shit, honestly. I don't think I've ever met anybody in my life who actually has ever gotten offended or has like been like, oh, we need to change this conversation. I just don't think people care enough. Right?
I do know of one person who does say, no, you've got that wrong. It's Merry Christmas. I know
it has to be Merry Christmas.
Has to be Merry Christmas. Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah, that's the thing. I've only ever heard it the other way. I've only ever heard it has to be Merry Christmas. I've never heard it as, you can't say Happy Holidays or whatever.
Right.
I don't know. It's very silly. Silly.
How bizarre. But I will have a Merry Christmas this year because I'm not driving. So
there you go. That's how you do it. That is how you do it. But yeah, I don't know how I feel again about being a host of a proxy war between 2 callers. I say, listen, I am interested in bug people on Mars, but like we saw the photos and I wasn't impressed. If we have other photos to review, that would be something. Maybe we could talk about those. But yeah, as far as the bug people on Mars claim, I'm not there yet.
I'm not real impressed by the parrot either, to tell you the truth.
Can we show that on screen? What does it look like, Kelley?
Here, you know what? I'll send a picture to the crew and let's see if they can put it up for us.
While you're doing that, I'm just going to very quickly talk about some things I need to get out of the way. One of them is about our Where is it? It's almost here. No, I don't have all of my regular stuff here today. Actually, I think we have super chats. I should probably talk about that. If you guys want to ever donate on the super chats, that's always a thing. We will read them out loud in case you already saw the one from earlier. I also want to talk about the merch. We do have merchandise right now. We're bringing back some of the stuff that we've included from earlier this year and from previous years, I think, as well. If you go to tiny.cc/merch ACA, we usually do this kind of thing around Christmas time. We kind of bring out a lot of the merch. So check that out if you haven't already. And last but not least, I do have to thank the wonderful, amazing crew that do help make this show happen every single week. I gave them a thanks, but you know what? They deserve a double thanks. Check it out. We got John Gregg in space, is the concept of space helping us out tonight, I guess. So that's really interesting. So thanks for that concept of space, and everybody else that helps make the show happen. Don't know what was up with that. I think that was Jason, but maybe, I don't know. Maybe he wasn't there. He might have went to the bathroom or something. But anyway, okay, Kelley, you got this set up here. What do you got?
Yeah, I sent the picture to him, so.
Okay, then maybe crew can put a parrot. Crew, whenever you want, you can just put that parrot head on screen. I know we have some options.
It's the whole parrot, not just the head. It's the whole parrot.
Oh, it's a whole parrot. It's a whole ass parrot. Okay.
Yeah.
To me, it looks like an elephant eye. Not that if it comes up, it doesn't, or maybe a blue whale eye. I don't know. If it comes up, it's bizarre.
Like I said, I wasn't real impressed. I did a picture too where they had colored in the green parrot body. So
oh, I see. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I know too. We have like a really juicy voicemail that we didn't get to react to last week. We had too many callers, but we might do it this week. We'll see. So and we always got some screenshots too. So maybe we'll get to that in a bit. But for now, though, we do have some more callers on the line. So let's talk to some more folks. You guys ready?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Cool. We have Charles calling from Scotland today. Awesome. Charles from Scotland, you are live on Truth Wanted. What's going on tonight?
Hi, just wanted to call because I was chatting with the couple people in the Atheist Experience stream. Kelley, I talked to a little bit, and he encouraged me to call, and I'm calling.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Well, what's up then? What can we talk to you about?
Yeah, so a little bit about me. I've been a Christian I was a Christian for about 10 years. And during that time, I went to earn 3 theological degrees, including a PhD. But near the end of my PhD, I basically deconverted.
Whoa, you got all the way to PhD before you deconverted? That is wild.
Yeah. Part of the reason is because I grew up in a secular household. And so kind of the evangelical, the emotional qualities of evangelical in my community was quite alluring, and it kind of trapped me in for a bit. Yeah,
definitely. Oh, go ahead, John.
So you grew up in a secular household. So your parents were or are non-believers. How did they feel with you going down the route of Christianity?
That's a good question. I'm from an ethnic group that really highly values education, and so when I told my parents that when I first became a Christian, they didn't really care that much. They were like, oh, he's nicer, so it's a good thing. But when I wanted to go to seminary and do more studies, they were both my father and mother were both against it. Right.
Because I'm from that side of the pond, so I kind of know how families react. Because largely the UK is secular. It's at least 50% secular, and I know how my folks would feel about me doing that. So it's interesting to see or hear how it would go up north, as it were.
John, do you think your folks would be not supportive if you decided you want to go to seminary?
Yeah, I grew up in a largely spiritualist home, I guess. So we didn't have the God belief, but we had the afterlife and speaking to ghosts and all that to deal with. So I think if I was to go down another strain of it, they might have something to say, because it would then take away from the whole coming back as, ghosts and how you can interact with people and speak to people and give messages and all this stuff. So I think they would. Thankfully, that's not an issue for my family, but I don't even do the speaking to dead people stuff anymore. So
Right.
maybe they're disappointed with that.
Notably. If you still did, this would be a very different dynamic.
Right.
I was interested in what changed Charles' mind.
Right.
Yeah. Tell us more about that, Charles.
Just to clarify, I'm actually an American. I'm here. I'm finishing my PhD studies. So.
Okay, gotcha.
Oh, okay.
But what convinced me? It's quite interesting because I did my studies. I delved deep into the Bible, right? So I was an evangelical, and so I really cared about the Bible. In seminary, we learned a concept called authorial intent. So what does the author intend to say? So I always carry that idea into how I read the Bible. And as I did that, I started to focus more on try to pick up the perspective of what the author wanted to say to the original audience. And as I did that more and more and more, I read more and more and more, I realized that most of what we hear in the evangelical church, at least, is not the authorial intent. It is the contemporary audience, the contemporary pastor, even the contemporary Bible scholars. Some of their intent is read into it, and so it's hard to approach the original layer. As I approached the original layer more and more, I realized that there are so many problems with the Bible. Like, I don't need to mention all of them, but just take a few. The Pentateuch, the first 5 books of Moses, is basically myth. The historical Jesus, the historical Jesus person, if he existed, is not the same as the Jesus Christ that we see in the Gospels. This is just a small handful of the problems. And once that really hit me, I realized that this thing, it quickly fell apart because I realized that a lot of it was based on myth. And so I'm Chinese. In my culture, we have a mythical story. If any Chinese hearers are listening, they'll know the story called Journey to the East. It's a myth story about a Buddhist monk who travels journeys to the west, who travels west to India from China. And on the path, he meets all these kind of challenges, these ghosts and demons, and he and his compatriots fight them off. But I thought to myself, I said, I don't take Journey to the West. I know it's a myth. I don't take it as the guide to how I live my life. Why should I take the Old and New Testament? It's also a myth. It doesn't make any sense to me. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, Charles, just real quick, you might be talking a little too close to your phone or your mic or wherever you're talking to because you are peaking a little bit. So if you could just move just a little bit away next time you talk to us, that would be awesome. But yeah, the experience you're talking about is something that I've heard from other folks who've also been to seminary, which is this idea of, when I actually study the Bible from an academic perspective, I really have a different view of it. And you realize that pastors and priests who do talk about the Bible, right, are talking about it in a very, very, very different way than from the people who study the Bible in an academic discipline. You're talking about authorial intent, which is also very true. This is a revelation for myself as well. This idea that, look, the Bible that we have today is a much more modern idea compared to the people who actually wrote the books individually. They did not intend it as part of a larger collection of works. They did not meet these other people for most of the time who wrote these other books of the Bible. Their version of God and their version of theology was very different from the people who also wrote in these other times. And if you don't believe me, look at all the books that we don't have that aren't in the Bible, right? These are also people who were also expressing their own intent. And it wasn't until there was an actual congregation of power within the church, now what we call the Catholic Church, but the original Christians who were Catholic, who were saying, hey, we're going to put these books together and we're going to choose what's right and what's wrong. And that's just how it came to be. And knowing that history does really change your look on the Bible, because it's like, okay, why should I care about what the author of the book of Daniel says compared to the author of the book of Genesis? They're two different people from different time periods speaking to different issues and interpreting things differently. And suddenly this idea of the Bible being God's word as a unique cohesive unit doesn't really make sense. It's more of a scattered series of blog posts from different times and different authors and perspectives. So yeah, it's very interesting that you also had that revelation.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel that as I got to know more about the authors and the writings of the Bible, in particular, one person I really began to dislike was Paul. And I thought he was necrotic, psychopathic guy who wanted to divide. And there's a lot in the New Testament about how he was not having a good time with the Jerusalem first disciples. So
yeah. If Paul was around today, he would be in the manosphere. We would call him an incel, straight up. That's my take. Okay, we would not like Paul.
Absolutely. We would.
Go ahead, Charles. You were saying something
Augustine
else.
And Calvin.
Yes. Yeah. What about those guys?
The other thing I want to say is that I also deconverted in part because of my PhD research. So in my research, I encountered a lot of Christian nationalists and learned more about the rise of Christian nationalism from the 1950s, 60s, roughly, as a political movement, the moral majority. And to be honest, I don't say this in my research. I'm not allowed to say it, but it disgusted me.
Wow.
Yeah. I imagine as a thinking person with a regular normal compass, it would, it would. That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah. So, hey, Kelley, I'm the guy in the chat. So did you want to ask me any questions?
Oh, no, I would just thought your story was kind of interesting. And I thought that I was wondering, what seminary did you go to over in Scotland? Just out of curiosity.
So I did my seminary studies in the U.S. I went to Bethel Seminary.
Bethel Seminary. Heard a lot of stories about Bethel. None of them good. Yeah. Oh man.
Actually,
well,
I had
Charles,
a really good time at Bethel. My professors were actually really good, and they actually earned their PhD in universities too, and they taught us to think critically. But I was a young believer at the time when I went to seminary. I was about 4 years into my Christian faith, so I was very filled with the Spirit, so to speak, really gung-ho about it. So I just sucked up everything it said in a kind of through a faith lens. And so anyone who claims that I'm not a real Christian because I deconverted is just complete BS, because I was the ideal Christian. I had read the Bible 30 to 40 times before I went to seminary. I was praying at least 2 hours a day. I had gone on spiritual retreats, silent retreats. I prayed for people. I had this prayer buddy who I prayed with every day, every night, 1 hour every night. So I was the epitome of a Christian. And when that all fell away, it's like it was really slow. It took me a lot longer to fall away than it took me to pick it up. But as it fell away, I turn around and I see people who would consider me not a false believer. I say, screw you. I'm a better Christian than you ever were.
What would you say has changed? So you were a non-believer, became a believer, and then went back to being a non-believer. What would you say is different now than when you were a believer? Is there anything that you like? I'm not doing that because I've been a believer and now I'm fully on the other side. What would you say is a big thing that you would or wouldn't do now that you are, out as a non-believer?
That's a really good question, I think. The biggest change for me is that I now look at things with a critical lens. I ask, is this true? Is this right? Is there any evidence? Now, Kelley in the chat, he was a skeptic when I mentioned myself, and he's right. I think he's right to be skeptical. I appreciate that. I think that being skeptical in this day and age is a good thing. Let me argue why. Because if you notice nowadays, there's a lot more scams going on, right? Romance scams, pig butchering scams. We need to be careful about what we see today, especially now with AI and internet, social media. We need to see the evidence for the arguments. If we don't see the evidence, we should really be curious and skeptical about the arguments. So that's probably the biggest thing I learned.
Wow.
Yeah. And I don't think Christianity really endorses that, like really ever. You know, there are some people that say, oh, Christianity informs my scientific worldview. And it's like, really? That's amazing, because I don't think you're getting that from the Bible. You know, maybe you're getting that from the people in your community who probably have a mix of all kinds of ideas. But I don't think broad skepticism is really much of a value that's ever been held in traditional Christianity. And I think that does it does serve as a adherence to finding, I don't know, true things, you know, kind of can make you believe bullshit. And I'm glad for you, Charles. It sounds like you're doing well for yourself. Sounds like you figured some stuff out, and I'm rooting for you. So what's next for you? Are you gonna start deconverting people? Are you gonna start, you know, posting online, or are you just gonna live your life and just have other people kind of figure things out?
Yeah, thanks for asking me. It's tough because I went through this entire process, 10 years of studying theology with the intention of becoming what they call a pastor/scholar. So it is someone who preaches in the church and also does scholarly work for the seminary or the academy. And because I deconverted, and I deconverted so completely, I feel that it would be a lack of integrity for me to preach ever again, to do seminary teaching ever again. I could not see myself doing that. I won't deceive myself to do that. I won't deceive other people. So I think for me, the path really is the question of what kind of employment can I find? And I'm looking more in the direction of college or university teaching in the field that I do, which is anthropology of religion.
Fantastic.
Charles, have you heard of the Clergy Project?
I have, yes, Kelley.
I was just thinking that you might want to contact them and talk to them about, some things. They might be able to help you out with your future work.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not an ex-minister. I've never, really got involved with them. I know that they're a really good organization. I think Daryl Ray might have been involved with it somehow. I'm not positive about that, but I think you might want to just get a hold of it. Maybe you can do some good back and forth with each other. You might be able to help them out too. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I appreciate that. Thank you for the recommendation. We'll try to get in touch with them at some point in the near future.
Yeah, for those who aren't familiar with it, the Clergy Project is a project that helps folks who are leaving the clergy, because it's often found that, hey, when you work in the clergy or in related fields, you don't tend to have the same kind of marketable skill sets that other people have in other trades. And that's a huge problem, especially if you don't believe anymore, because like Charles said, you don't want to deceive people, but you also need to make a living, right? So how do you do that ethically? How do you transition out of that? So that's what the Clergy Project is, for those of you who aren't familiar. That is an organization that we have supported in the past, and we definitely recommend people go check them out because they do some cool stuff there. But Charles, we do have some other folks that want to talk to us, so I am going to let you go now. Was there anything else you wanted to say before we let you go?
No, thank you very much, guys. And for anyone who's hearing this and questioning their Christian faith, I encourage you to look for the evidence, read a bit of critical Bible commentaries, read Ehrman, read Stanopoulos. I forgot her name, but I forgot her first name. Francesca. She's the supervisor for the guy escapes me right now, but she's at the University of Exeter. Read these people and think about what is being presented here. I am sure you will come to the same conclusion that many of us have come to. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Charles. Thanks for the excellent call.
Yeah, thanks, Charles. Thanks for calling in on my request. I really appreciate it. This was a great call. So
yeah. Kelley was saying he was talking to you, so that's awesome. Good. You're a real person, at least. You're not an AI chatbot. Kelley was just talking to you senselessly. But yeah, there's something that I wanted to add to that too. Just that one, I'm so glad that Charles could share his experience, because that's not the first time I've heard an experience like that, and it won't be the last. So it's always good to hear that for folks that are going through something similar. But also he went on this tangent that I really appreciate it. And you talked about this idea of being a real Christian, because I've gotten this too. And I know other folks who have watched this have gotten this. When you leave the faith, there's this idea that, oh, technically you never were really in the faith because of all these spiritual tests. And usually they're referencing this passage in 1 John, which, funnily enough, speaking of authorship, we don't even know who wrote 1 John. It probably wasn't even the Apostle John who actually wrote it. But they're talking about these verses that basically say, hey, look, a Christian is always going to be a Christian, and they're going to act within the Holy Spirit, and they can't act outside of the Holy Spirit. So if they don't have the Holy Spirit in them, then they never had it in the first place, right? So there's this basically this damned if you do, damned if you don't sort of idea that, look, you were never really a Christian because you couldn't leave the faith if you were a real Christian. And that's just fucking bullshit. And I'll tell you why. When you grow up in a community and this is all you know, and this is all of your values and all of your friends and family, it's fucking hard to leave that and to be honest with yourself. And for people to say, oh, you never actually represented those values and you weren't a real Christian in the first place, I say go fuck yourself. I'm with Charles on that, because that's, one, dehumanizing, but two, also completely disregards the real authentic trying that people have had with Christianity. People have really tried to believe in this, and when they figure out they can't, it's not their fault. Right? It's just not. It's not their fault. You can't hold them to something that they just can't believe. It's just not how belief works. You can't force it. If you honestly believe something or you honestly don't, that's just the way it is. So anyway, that's my tangent to Charles' tangent, because I think it's an important thing to bring up. But anyway, what did you guys think about that call? I thought that was great.
It was nice to hear the story. Yeah. It's interesting it's interesting to know that he said he was from a secular family, and it interests me that how that as a relationship would work, because I feel like if any of my siblings were to say to my parents, oh, we found God, my parents would be like, what's wrong with you? Where did this come from? It's not like they've ever learned about this stuff. I never really learned about that stuff when I was a kid. I mean, they did teach me about speaking to dead people, so I guess there's some kind of indoctrination, but
sure.
I just feel like we're moving away from this whole belief in deity stuff, and so it was just interesting to hear how his folks responded to it.
Yeah, I was interested in that as well, because it's just not that common, right? Yeah. Like, if you're a Christian, it's usually because your parents were Christian. It's very often not the case that it happens otherwise. Unless you're like in a country that's been colonized.
Right. I thought he had a really interesting journey. I'm really glad he called. So yeah.
Good job, Kelley. Thanks for goading people to call into the show.
I'm trying to goad some theists in the chat now, but they don't seem like they want to call us. They're afraid to call us, I guess.
I don't know. Come on, the last show of the year, guys.
Yeah.
Make a Christmas miracle happen. Turn us into believers, please. I'd love to hear it. Okay, so we do have one caller that I think may be from a Christian. The call name is Jesus Tales. I could be wrong about this, or maybe not, actually. I think they're calling from North Carolina. Jesus Tales, you're live on Truth Wanted. What's going on?
Hey, guys, what's going on? It's kind of hard to follow that one. That was a pretty intense call there from Charles. I hope he finds his true calling in life. But, yeah. So what I'm calling about is I've got a bit of a story for you about Jesus. Okay. So in the Bible, Jesus killed the king of Jerusalem, hung him on a tree, took him down at evening, put him in a cave, and piled a large pile of rocks in front of that cave, which remain to this day. And now that's in the Old Testament. It's in the Old Testament that Mark grew up reading, because he grew up reading Greek. And the character Joshua, to him, was Jesus. So you can see the parallels between that story. Yeah, go ahead.
So are we following what's happening here? Because I'm confused.
I have no idea. There's no.
What passages are you referring to, Jesus Tales?
Okay. So this is Jesus, son of Nun, right? Joshua, son of Nun. Everybody knows the story of the conquest and stuff like that. But in chapter 10, he kills the king of Jerusalem and hangs him on a tree. And this is obviously used by Mark in his story of Jesus of Nazareth. You can see the parallels, taking him down in the evening, stuff like that.
I gotta see. You're talking about the book of Joshua, chapter 10?
Yes.
Okay, I gotta remind myself on this
I
one.
gotta pull it up.
Joshua, Israel, blah blah blah, went to Eglon and Hebron. So boring, including the hill country. Where's the dragons? I know there's some dragons in here somewhere. Actually, I think this is the same chapter where they talk about the sun standing still in the sky. I could be wrong. That's somewhere in Joshua, though. All right, so your point that you're making here is that, look, the author of the New Testament, one of the authors of the New Testament, was drawing a parallel from this Old Testament story in the Jesus narrative. I that's probably plausible. I haven't personally encountered this particular argument before, but I do know that there is scholarship, because we're talking about scholarship, that does cite that, hey, like the New Testament, oftentimes, particularly in Luke and Matthew, right, are referencing these stories from the Old Testament in building out the mythology of Jesus, right? Because they're trying to make him a fulfillment of a prophecy. People often talk about the prophecy in the book of Daniel, right, of Jesus being the Messiah figure, that the Messiah figure is this figure within Jewish sort of mythos that is supposed to come and redeem people of sin. Obviously, Jesus kind of deviates from that a little bit, and that's why there's still Jewish people today, because they don't believe it. But, you know, this could be part of that mythos, is what you're saying.
Are you equating?
Important distinction.
Okay.
Are you saying that this account in Joshua is the same account that was written, that Mark wrote down for Jesus, that he actually copied it? Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Some of it he imitates, some of it he inverts. You know, the concept of being hung on a tree, the book of Acts describes Jesus as hung on a tree 3 different times, twice coming from Paul's mouth and once coming from Peter's mouth. You know, putting his body in a cave, Mark says a tomb, but if you've ever been to Israel, I've never been, but I've seen pictures of the king's tombs. They're caves. You know, the caves dug in a. But here's the distinction. Okay, so this all could be mythology that's layered on to a historical Jesus. But here's the key. Jesus, son of Nun, did this exactly 40 years after his message, his spy report, was rejected by the Israelites and they threatened to stone him. And we see that show up in Mark as Nazareth rejects Jesus 40 years before Jerusalem is destroyed by the Romans.
Are you just so I can clarify, because my brain is like frying right now, because I don't know what's going on. Are you posing this as proof of a supernatural Jesus, or just proof that people copied stories?
Okay, so here's the thing. There's tons of evidence of Jesus being copied from Old Testament Jesuses, because there's more than one. But this particular
that can also go back to, like, there's also other things that you can look at, where some of the stories of Jesus can also be taken further back from other completely different religions, and just the names slightly changed to whatever religion.
I think the confusion here is because Joshua also means Jesus. I think that's where the connection
okay.
Yeah. Yeshua, same thing.
So what I'm saying, what I'm saying is this is a very Jewish story, but it is just a story, and it's placed in time at 30 CE, where Pilate is ruling. Mark puts the story setting at that time period because it's 40 years before the destruction of Jerusalem. And it's not the only time in the Old Testament where this happens. Jeremiah is rejected by his hometown, Anathoth, exactly 40 years before Jerusalem is destroyed by Nebuchadnezzar. So this kind of, to me, this proves that Jesus has to be complete literature myth?
I think it can well, it's speculative, right? You're making an argument for that. I don't think it counts as proof in and of itself, but I think the evidence you're putting forth can lend to the argument of that, because what you're saying, and I'm trying to verify what you're saying, because some of what you're saying is new, some of what you're saying is not new to me, right? So this idea, there's a couple of different things to break down here. One is Pontius Pilate, right? Pontius Pilate is talked about a lot in the narrative. Why Pontius Pilate? What's going on there? Because there's some really confusing stuff that's happening at the beginning of Jesus' story, right? They're talking about a king that's going to hunt down babies and stuff. We don't have any of that in history. Right? Remember this? That's how Jesus starts off. They're like, we want to kill him because we know there's a special boy and he's out there, and they don't do it. They don't do it. They've never recorded this, right? Same thing with Pontius Pilate. Pontius Pilate, we don't have any records of him interacting with Jesus, doing all this kinds of stuff. And then there is a prophecy that's talked about that says, hey, the third temple is going to, the second temple of Jerusalem is going to fall, and it does happen. But according to scholars, this happens before the actual narrative of the New Testament is written, right? And that's part of how we even date the New Testament itself, because they're talking about a prophecy of an event that's already happened, right? And this has happened in other kinds of prophetic literature. So this is what they hear. So you're kind of taking all of these points and you're putting it together, and you're saying, well, look, all of this is proof that this is a mythological work. And I would say you're kind of preaching to the choir here. Like, we definitely are on the same page as far as like, yeah, I don't think Jesus was really out there, raising people from the dead and multiplying fishes and stuff. Okay. Like we're on the same page. So yeah, I don't know. If you want to make your point there, then yeah, you've made it. Congratulations. You've convinced us,
Okay. Okay. Yeah. I would also like to say, if you guys have time, that Mark wasn't original in doing this. Like the Elisha story, Elisha just is a theophoric switch between the names Joshua and Elisha, Yahweh for El. So Elisha's like a second coming of Jesus, son of Nun. Jesus, son of Jehoshaphat, is like a second coming of Jesus, son of Nun. And Jesus of Nazareth is a composite of all three of those. So
yeah, there's definitely some like
new in Jewish literature.
Without a doubt, I think scholars would agree with you in that there are definitely designed coincidences, I'll put it that way, that are put into the New Testament narrative, sort of these parallels that are supposed to be made, right? The debate is, how much of that is actually history that we're talking about here, and how much of this is, just like rhetorical effect, right? There are some that even go far as to say that Jesus is completely mythological and that he's not even real. I'm not one of those people that goes that far. There's some people that do, but as far as like, is the narrative kind of sus? Yeah, it's absolutely sus. It's definitely post facto.
I have a problem with this because we're looking at like the story of Joshua is supposedly from like 1300 BC, right? Sure. And the story of Jesus is 1300 years later. Yeah. So it seems to me that like some of the details being the same over the course of 1300 years, that doesn't seem that unplausible to me, that you had something that happened in 1 year and 1300 years later, you had something else that happened that was similar to it. I mean, that seems well within the realm of coincidence, I guess, or, the realm of possibility to me.
Especially if the story's been told over and over as well, you're going to remember certain parts of it.
Yeah. So let me propose this idea. Let's say there's a young person who came up and saw the Spider-Man movies from the early 2000s, right? And they thought there might be a real person behind those, right? And they start doing research trying to find a Peter Parker that lived in New York City or something like that. Now, if he comes across evidence that there was a guy spinning webs in comic books in the 80s and 70s, he's got to believe that it's pure myth. There's no longer a Peter Parker in 2000s New York trying to solve crimes and dressing up like spinning webs, Does that make sense?
Kelley,
we're talking like the space of 10 years and another space of 1300 years, right?
Okay, and to be fair, Kelley, that's the narrative is 1300, but that's not when Joshua was written. That's also, it's much closer. Joshua
And-
is like closer to like Daniel and stuff, which is like 5th or 6th century BC.
You can look
I'm
at a
pretty sure.
modern parallel as well. There's the Star Wars story. An orphan who then learns about his magic powers and then defeats the evil. And Harry Potter, who then is an orphan who learns he's got magic powers and then defeats the evil. I'm really
That's
confused
fair.
as to what's going on.
I'm not sure where this is going because
Right.
Jesus Tales. I concede the point that were the writers of the New Testament familiar with Judaism and its writings? 100%. There's way too much evidence of that to believe otherwise. But I don't think that in its own means that Jesus was created wholesale. You could definitely have Jesus as a historical person and then have myth attributed to him into like post facto. Like I think that's what a lot of people say. That's why there's so much difference between the Mark narrative and the John narrative, for example, because like they have different goals with what they want to do with Jesus. So I would be very careful if your argument is, look, this is how we know Jesus is completely mythological, because I don't know if you can do that.
Right.
I have been very careful. I promise you. Name anything from Mark, and I can tell you what Judean mythology it came from.
But
Again,
that still doesn't prove that.
Yeah. It's one of those things where we probably won't ever really know, and
Right.
I'm comfortable with that. We
It's
can definitely be
interesting,
sure
though.
though that these accounts aren't accurate, right? That there's no way that these things happen in history. But as far as like, did these people exist? That's kind of outside of the scope, unfortunately. It's just not a question we can answer. I think that drives some people crazy and they try to answer it,
Well,
But-
okay. Let me push back on the Star Wars thing, the Star Wars and the Harry Potter. Those are sort of high-level things, and those type of parallels exist as well. But these are minute storyline features that are just very, very well copied, very well imitated, sometimes very well inverted.
Sure.
It's just
And-
very minute.
But Jesus says,
yeah.
I'm with you on that. They did take stuff from that narrative. But here's the thing too, there's also new stuff to the Jesus narrative, right? And like that stuff could also be made up, probably is, but it could also be at least partly taking from stuff that Jesus did. And that's the problem. We can't examine that. That's just outside of our ability to examine history, right? Like we just don't have that. And I think it just
we have these are small books. These are small.
Yeah.
Mark's a small book. These are pieces of literature, and you're saying that there's things that Jesus did that were new. I don't know any of them because I've looked at Mark chapter 1 through 16.
Well, when I say new, I mean
It
that
is
they're
all
not
copied.
referencing the strict
Yeah.
mythology of the Jewish people, right?
They are.
Like there's
Yeah.
like they didn't talk about Pontius Pilate in Joshua. Pontius Pilate's a different guy.
That's an
or they
historical
multiplying.
figure, though. That's not fair. That's the setting in time.
That's my point, though. That's my point. There's like you can't. It's not wholesale. If it's anyway. I think we're kind of saying some of the
It
same
is
things. I think we
wholesale.
mostly agree here. I do want to move on. Was there anything else you want to add before we let you go, Jesus
Okay.
Tales?
Thank you for letting me call. And if anybody's curious, I got a page set up on academia.edu, Jesus Tales. But thank you, guys.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you so much for calling. There you go. I got a little confused in that call. I got a little lost in the sauce.
And I think a lot of what we do is like you have people coming up to tell you you're wrong because this, and this. And that's why I felt like he was coming in saying you're all wrong and this proves this. But like he's kind of, yeah, I'm with you.
Who is he fighting? Who is he fighting?
Yeah, right?
That's what I need to know.
I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. I won't reiterate my points. I'll just keep going. I'll take the next call unless you guys have anything else you want to add.
No.
No, I do.
Oh, you do?
The Mars parrot.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, the
okay.
Mars parrot. Yeah, let's see a quick picture of the
Put it
Mars
on
parrot.
screen. Can we get that, crew, if they're ready for that?
I'm excited.
Maybe not.
They-
Hopefully.
They said they were ready, so
Okay.
there we
There it
go.
is. Oh, and Kelley. I'm sorry for those who can't see. It's just covered Kelly's face, but so Dan and I can be looking.
Yeah.
At it now.
What's up
That's
with that?
okay. The parrot's more important than I.
Where the fuck is the parrot? Oh, I see. Okay, so the colored bits
Yeah, the color
That's-
goods kind of
That's the
show it.
sculpture. Oh, come
Yeah,
on.
yeah,
See what I
right,
mean about
that's-
more,
that's
like
lame.
if you'd come to me and said that there's an elephant eye sculpture on Mars, I'd be like, yeah, there is. Look at that. A parrot is really stretching it.
That's worse than the face.
Audio listeners, I don't know what to say. It's a rock. It's a funny looking rock. That's it.
Yep.
Somebody put some colors on, and now it's a parrot, I guess. Worst parrot sculpture I've ever seen. If a kid in one of John's, if a kid that I had to work with gave me that sculpture, I'd give him a D. I'd say terrible. That's
So you can say me. I teach kids. So yeah,
I was gonna say, I don't know.
Ember in the chat, in the text chat just said parrot-dolia. I thought that was pretty funny.
Parrot-dolia. Oh man, John is like getting some government interference
That's
right
weird.
now. John, what's
Wow.
going on, dude?
I don't know. Can you even
They're
hear
trying
me?
to take you away.
Right.
While you figure that out, I am going to go ahead and get the next caller on and see what's going on with that. That is
That's weird.
that's a problem right there. I don't know what to tell you on that. Let's see. We have a couple different people. Kelley, I know you got call screener open. Who you want to talk to?
I was looking at Mike. What do you think about Mike?
Let's talk to Mike. Okay. Yeah, that sounds good to me. Let's talk to Mike. Mike, who's calling in from Florida. And folks, if you're still calling, we probably still have time to get to you. So if you don't mind holding on, we appreciate it. Mike, you are now live on Truth Wanted. What's going on?
Not much, guys. Saw that your live was coming on today, and I wanted to call in with a different perspective for you.
All right. Give me that different perspective. I love to hear it.
All right. Well, I think the very first step is to understand why man created gods, plural.
Okay.
And today we all know them these effects as placebos and nocebos, right? These are the triggering effects of an unknown mechanism that either makes you sick or makes you better. I don't think that's something that's out of the ordinary. People know what they are, and certain humans have known about it, since the early days. Now, today they can't resolve what mechanism is actually at work. Some subatomic interaction is going on because of human certainty in the outcome. So
you're talking about quantum mechanics right now?
No. I'm just, whatever. I'm out there. So
no, like what? Seriously, what are you talking about? I don't know what you're talking about right now.
Okay, man created the gods as a symbolic representation of specific effects, which is why each god had very specific things that they could perform.
Sometimes, sure. Yeah. I mean, you're just trying to, I can't agree with this idea of why did man make gods and we just boil that down to a single sentence. I just don't think that's going to work for me. I just think it's going to be way more complicated than that. Right.
Certainly it is, but I feel kind of rushed since you told everybody else that, hey, we're going to.
No, that's fine. I will give you that. This is maybe one reason why, right? Can we go that far? Is that cool with you?
Well, think about it this way. So the Native Americans danced to a rain god for thousands of years. And if it had never worked, they wouldn't continue doing it after some point, right? I mean, you can't say the Native Americans were stupid and they didn't get odds.
Well, I mean, I don't first of all, there's many different groups when we're talking about Native Americans. Not all Native American groups are the same in their beliefs. They vary quite widely between their different structures. Usually they're much more local and certainly not all of them are, doing what you're talking about. So there is some kinds of rituals. You don't have to single out any group of people. You can point out all kinds of folks who say, hey, this is supposed to be a specific effect that comes from this ritual, and they expect that effect. Or if the effect doesn't happen, then they must not have done it right. It's just kind of a self-serving cycle. But again, I'm still not sure where we're going with this.
Okay, the Romans created Christ to disprove that the power of a placebo needs a god as the mediator, like pills in a placebo interaction. You've heard people talk about before that Jesus performed placebo miracles. Have you ever heard that thesis before?
I mean, sure.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
that's well within the realm of possibility.
I don't know if we can
Well, I mean,
specifically
about it.
say the Roman people as a whole manufactured Christ.
Rome.
That seems like a big stretch. I don't know how we get there.
I don't know how you get
John's
there either.
back.
Rome. The people didn't control Rome. Listen, Bob, a guy named Bob in Rome, he created it, okay? I don't know why you're taking me down that rabbit hole, but let's just take it as an analogy of Rome.
Well, you're the one that said that Jesus was specifically fabricated by the Roman people. Like, I imagine there's a who in there somewhere.
The Roman people. I said by Rome.
Yeah, Rome, the Roman people. I don't know what we're splitting hairs here, but yeah, is an invention by a specific ethnic group of people or local group of people.
Or do you mean the leaders of Rome?
Yeah, do you mean like the leadership? What are we talking about?
Oh, come on, man. I thought that we were going to have a conversation here. I didn't think we were going to try to get this down to the nano so you can feel comfortable.
Yeah, I'm going to get this down to the nano until I feel comfortable. Yeah, that's how this is going to happen. Because, like, I don't just let people make wild claims about shit and just pretend like, oh, yeah, that's fine. Whatever. We'll just let it slide. Like, that's kind of the whole point of the show is to talk about what people believe and why. So I want to know why you believe that Jesus Christ is actually a fabrication of the Roman government or whatever.
Just talk about it. Dan.
Hello, you have the floor, Mike. I'm listening.
Right. Okay. So it's pretty well known that the Catholic Church, or the older version of today's Catholic Church, the Holy Roman Church, created or assembled the New Testament. Is that not accurate?
Yeah. Well, yes. By what we would call the Catholic Church, yes, that is by the earliest assemblage of the Bible comes from what we would call today the Catholic Church. Yeah, that's fair.
Okay, good. All right. So you've heard of the accounts of people talking about something called the Gospel of Christ or the Gospel of Jesus.
Yes.
Is that true? Have you heard about it? Okay. The Muslims, they believe that in something called the Injil, which is also they call the Gospel of Jesus or the Good News of Jesus. Have you heard of that?
Sure.
Okay. And that they suspect that when the time comes and that's brought out, it's kind of the same as our Revelation, or like Revelation 21, that it will free everyone because the information that was given by God to Jesus will be known to all men. Have you heard that?
I maybe I don't know where we're going with this, but okay.
My point is that Jesus Christ was created, and let's just say he really lived. Okay, just to make you feel better. So Jesus Christ really lived, and he performed these miracles that were by other people's belief in his abilities. They didn't believe that he was the son of a god. They didn't think he was a god. But oftentimes when they would thank him after his miracle performance, he would say, it was your faith that healed you. He didn't say your faith in God, because those people didn't believe in his God. So what would you call that? That's a placebo intervention.
Yeah, this is oh my God. So, okay, you could have skipped all that stuff about the Muslims and the Catholic Church. That had nothing to do with your argument. I don't know why you brought that up. That was just a waste of all of our time. But second off, you're taking the account of the Gospels very literally. You're like saying, oh, these people, they believe by faith because the Gospel said they believe by faith. And Jesus said, if you follow me through faith, then good things will happen. Yeah, that's true. What does that have to do with it being manufactured? Like, what does that have to do with Jesus being a manufactured figure? Like, that could be said about all kinds of people who are also real. Like, I'm pretty sure David Koresh also said, you have to believe in me by faith. And he was like a real dude. You know, I've granted his religion was bullshit, but you get what I'm saying. Like, that doesn't mean that Jesus wasn't a real person, right?
Okay.
Okay. All right. I guess I'm right
Okay.
then.
Right. Because this is the problem with the arguments all the time. The Christians take one side, you guys take another, but no one's actually read the scripture. Everybody.
I haven't read the scripture, have I? Really, Mike?
Yeah, I have.
All right. Well, okay. So did Jesus?
I've actually read the Gospels like 6 times, way more than most Christians have.
Great. That's great. So why do people believe that Christ died for sin?
I have no fucking clue. I'm not in the other people's heads. You're asking me to explain what other people are thinking, and I can't do that.
Also, like, that's such a theologically diverse question. You're going to get like 11 different answers from 10 different Christians if you ask that.
It's plain as day in Hebrews.
Yeah, and guess what? Hebrews
Maybe to
is
you.
one guy's opinion.
Yeah, it might be clear as day to you, Mike, but it's not clear as day to all Christians. Otherwise, we wouldn't get 10 different answers.
Right. Not all Christians follow the book of Hebrews to a literal degree. Go ahead, Mike.
In Hebrews 9, they're talking about the things that people did, Old Testament people did, to reprieve themselves of sin. But
Yes.
It also continues in 9:9 that talks about that those gifts and sacrifices didn't purify their conscience. And then in 9:14 is a rhetorical statement or question. It says, so how much more shall the blood of Christ purge your conscience from dead works to serve the living God? So Christ wasn't dying for our sin. He was dying for the result of our sin, which is our defiled or guilty conscience. Now, why is that important? Because if you can purify...
No, why is any of this important right now? Are we talking about... Are you making the case that Jesus is manufactured? Like, are we still talking about that?
No, you are.
Okay, then what are you talking about, Mike?
Yeah,
what is the point
exactly, where exactly are you going with this, Mike?
I'm going with the same structure with God's as I did with Jesus.
No, Mike, I need you to give me a real answer. Where the fuck are we going with this?
Yeah.
What is the end point? What is the conclusion? What is the thesis?
What's the point you're trying to make?
Just hear me out. Another minute.
No, I'm not going to hear you out. We've already heard you out for the last, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. I need you to give me the thesis now so we can decide if we can keep having this call, or else you're wasting our time.
Point. Go fuck yourself, he, him.
Go fuck yourself, he, him. Mike, in Florida, you're a grown-ass man.
Oh,
You
wow.
called up a guy on a Friday night so you could talk about the gospel quite poorly, in fact, and you ended it with go fuck yourself, he, him. Yeah, you're really bringing people to Christ through your godliness. I can really tell, Mike.
I kind of wish my camera just stayed dead for another 5 minutes.
That was stupid. What a dumb conversation. Look, if you're trying to convince somebody of something, maybe it's best not to call them stupid. Say that they haven't actually read the gospel and then make long, arduous points about nothing in particular.
Yeah.
And then say that we're wrong because we still haven't heard him out. Right? Ridiculous.
I came into
Ridiculous.
that halfway as well, and I feel like I'm probably less confused than you both.
I thought we were talking about Jesus not being real. He was saying the Roman government made up Jesus.
Right.
But then he didn't. Then he's talking about theology.
It
I
sounded
don't
like
know.
he was going, well, if Jesus isn't real and the Romans made him up, then maybe the God isn't real as well. I don't know where that was going.
Yeah. Mike might be used to, maybe Mike's a pastor and maybe he's used to talking to people where people don't have to ask him questions and talk back to him.
Or it doesn't let them.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say try harder next time, Mike. Here's something I would do. Write out what you're going to say first, so you don't go on random tangents about Muslims and the Catholic Church to whatever point you're trying to make. I think that would be helpful for everybody.
Start with what you're trying to achieve from this.
Right.
Start there and then go, because then we'll all have a bit of a clue.
I'm good. I believe this, and here's the proof that I have behind me to back it up.
Right.
That'd be the way to make the argument.
There you go.
Yeah. Okay. I do. I want to give some time to Daniel here, if that's okay with you guys, because
No, that's fair.
I've been waiting for this.
Totally fair.
Daniel's been on the line for a minute, and there's a proxy war happening right now. That we are the sponsors of. We are the nation state of Truth Wanted, and we are sponsoring this proxy war. I think, Daniel, you're live on Truth Wanted. Some shit has been talked tonight, and I think you probably have a response to that. Go ahead, Daniel.
Yeah. Hi, guys. No, I didn't plan on calling in tonight. You took my call last week, so I thought you'd talk to me enough. But Phil, he challenged me. So I'm not trying to start a feud with Phil or anything. He sounds like a nice guy. I like the names he's using and stuff. Snot vampires so far have been my favorite. And
Bannon's also pretty good. I do like Race Bannon. That's a nice one. But yes, well, yeah. I understand. I think both of you, if you guys met in real life, you'd have a nice, polite conversation. But this is the internet where polite conversation doesn't exist and only violence and screaming can happen. So, I understand what's happening.
Maybe you should come and hang out in the Discord after shows sometime. That would be cool.
Yeah, there you go. Can I ask a question real quick? Were you just using his real name just to piss him off? Because that's what he was complaining about when he called.
No, I mean, I can recognize the guy's fucking voice.
I'm just saying because that was what he was complaining about when in his call today, is that you were calling him out on his real name when he was using fake names.
Yeah, I thought so. Yeah.
So go back to my original question. When you knew that it was upsetting him that you were using his real name, did you just repeatedly use his real name just to piss him off?
Yeah, sure.
All right.
But let me respond to what he said though. I know it's my fault.
Why didn't you just respond to what he said instead of trying to piss him off? Why did you feel the need to have to do that?
Because I can recognize his voice.
That's not an excuse. Just because I recognize somebody's voice doesn't mean I need to piss him off. I mean, I recognize your voice, Daniel. I know I'm probably pissing you off right now, but I recognize your voice every time you call. And I don't try to piss you off every time.
He was being petty. He was being petty. I think he recognizes he was being petty.
But I do think, and it's just been put in the crew chat, that if you both called in at the same time, there is a way that we could have you on at the same time. And we could just observe this conversation, which I think as long as no one's being petty, might be quite interesting.
Mm-hmm.
No, I didn't mean anything mean-spirited by it. I mean, just to troll and piss them off, whatever. I'm not. I reckon. I just thought he's using interesting names and stuff, and I love the. Like I said, a Snot Vampire was great, and Race Bannon is cool name. I love Johnny Quest. Sorry, I didn't. I apologize if I've hurt his feelings or anything. I'm sorry. I'm not.
It's not that you hurt his feelings; it's that you use this show to insult somebody. That's what I find distasteful.
Well, I apologize. Yeah, that's what I did. I didn't mean to do that.
Well, I appreciate that. I think it's up to the caller, to accept that apology. But I think you're being genuine at least. Just throw my hat in the ring there. So we'll just move on. I just want to move on.
I can accept the apology. I'm just telling you why I was pissed off about it.
Yeah. No, I appreciate you pointing that out, Kelley. We don't be like that on here. So that's good. I think we should just move on from it now. But yeah, go ahead, Daniel.
Yeah. No, but I did to respond to his question. Like I said, it's my fault because I'm all over the place. It's difficult to talk about the subject. I'm here because I'm an atheist, right? Because I started listening to the Atheist Experience about 2012 or so, and when Matt Dillahunty and Tracy Harris were hosting and stuff like that, and it's just I would hear that occasionally the subject of alien abduction come up, and that's a subject I was interested in, ufology, and I always liked responding to it. I always just wanted to respond to it and share my beliefs on what's happening with the UFO phenomena. And Mars is just one aspect of it. It's the pictures that have come out from Mars from the Curiosity and the other robots have been very fascinating. And I think NASA is covering up lots of the parrot you showed earlier. I've seen that before. It's nothing impressive. It sort of looks like a parrot.
Yeah, I hear you, Daniel. Look, and look, this is the reason why Truth Wanted is a space, because I recognize, hey, there is a space for people that do want to talk about that kind of stuff, and this is the space to talk about it, and that's why I talk to you, because this is the space to do that. And I also recognize that you have a mythos, if you will, right, to your belief. There's a cosmology in of itself. It's not just bug people on Mars. There's a bunch of other stuff. My introduction to you was bug people on Mars, so I do talk about bug people on Mars, and it's just a great way to introduce you.
Yeah.
But I recognize that it's more complicated than that. That there's other things to it. The problem is we only have so much time on the call-in show. One. The other thing too is we just have to take things one step at a time, right? We can get to the other stuff, but like we still have to talk about what's on the table for us, right? And whether we're talking about the bug people stuff, whether we're talking about NASA conspiracies, we got to tackle things one thing at a time. So, when you do call in, I do appreciate that we focus on one topic at a time. And I think that's just the best way that we can have a conversation like this, right?
I want to make it clear too that I love your calls, Daniel. I don't have anything against you. It was just the action. So I accept your apology, and I encourage you to keep calling.
And here's another thing too. I think I don't want to speak for Kelley. So Kelley, you tell me if I'm wrong. We take doxing very seriously, right? And so I think that was kind of seen as an act of using somebody's name that they don't want to be called by, right? So that's why we might as hosts be particularly sensitive to that. So
okay. But again, the matter was that I I thought something that looked like an insect was really not an insect. I still think there are little beings that are that live on Mars that are kind of like, they live underground and they come up and they seem to work on the ground and they use tools. And what I thought was an insect face was in fact a mask, I think. I think they're some sort of like little mammal or something like that. I don't know what they are. But I just think NASA is covering it up. NASA doesn't want the public to know about it. And
I would encourage you to go and find like even more evidence for this that you can present and come back and go, look, this is what I found that demonstrates that there are people.
That's what I'm saying, Daniel. I think the next best step to our conversations is what we were talking about earlier. I was joking, but I wasn't actually. Yeah. We need a web page. We need to document everything, and because we can show it on screen. If we can like show everything you've collected so far and then talk about stuff that way, one, incredibly entertaining, but two, it'll help you make your points better for us, right? Because if you just talk about pictures you've seen, there's only so much we can do just talking about it without seeing it, right?
Yeah, I see your point. Yeah, no, I'm not very tech savvy, so I'm just a viewer. I'm just a listener of the show. And
you can do it, Daniel. I believe you can do it.
Yeah, I believe you can do it.
This is what you have to do. I'll give you exactly what you need to do. Google Docs. You've used Google Docs before. Just make a Google Docs page and then just make it public and share the link with us. Yep. That's all you got to do. Post your pictures in there, your links, whatever you want. Just put it in a public Google Doc. That's all you got to do.
Can I ask you a question, Daniel? You said this was a NASA cover-up. What do you think is the motive for that cover-up?
I think the motive is that they can't reveal that because it'll unlock more. It'll unlock the truth of what's behind the whole UFO phenomenon. That like these hearings that are going underway in Washington, what we call disclosure.
Secret.
So you believe these tiny creatures on Mars are the large UFOs that we're seeing?
No. I believe that if they have to reveal them, that would open up let's say a Pandora's box of information that they don't want to come out.
Isn't
along with-
that what the congressional hearings were for, though, to open that Pandora's box?
Yeah, sure. I know. Yeah. I'm not. They haven't. I'm not saying they haven't, but.
See, I'm confused. I'm confused. So if we're already opening Pandora's box, why would NASA be saying not to open the box if other people are already doing it?
I think that's the type, because like I think for Daniel's point of view, and I don't want to speak for Daniel, but just for speeding up the conversation's sake, I think what Daniel would say is that like that was an attempt to do it, but it didn't actually reveal anything. Like, you know, it was just people in Congress trying to do stuff, because like congressional hearings happen and stuff doesn't get revealed. Like that's not especially a conspiracy. That just kind of happens, right? So you know, I think that's what he would say in this case. One theory
is that it's like, instead of turning on a light instantly, you just gradually turn up the dimmer. So maybe
so you're kind of warming people up.
Very gradual way they're going to reveal it.
Moving the Overton window on aliens.
There you go.
For the general public.
There you go.
I see you. Okay, Daniel. I don't want to get too far into the NASA thing, because I wanted you to say your piece in response to the previous call. Was there anything else you wanted to add to that, or are we good to go for today?
Oh yeah, no, good. Thanks. I think you. Did he say you loved me last week or something? I think I heard you say that, and I just want to throw some love back at you for the end of the new year.
I don't know if I said, maybe Kelley said that. I do like hearing from you, Daniel. You do make my day. You really do. I personally enjoy the conversations. There are comments that debate whether our conversations are fruitful, but I don't care. I like them anyway. So.
And I want to shout out to the call screeners. I think your call screeners are great.
Thank you. They are great.
They are.
Shout outs to the call screeners.
Yeah.
Shout outs. I think Caitlin's on today, so shout outs to Caitlin. Shout outs to everybody that does call screening.
I think Jonathan's helping her out today too.
Jonathan too. Okay, hell yeah, we got a lot of folks who help out and do good stuff. And if anybody who's watching this wants to become a volunteer, you absolutely can. There's a way to do that. But anyway, I am going to let you go, Daniel, because we are running out of time. Thank you for calling in, and I wish you luck in the new year. And I hope, please go make a Google Doc, man. Make a Google Doc. That'll upgrade the quality of this show by so much if we start debating Google Docs. Oh my God.
And we can put them on the screen.
Yes,
well, the crew awesome. We'd see it in live time. That's awesome. Just before you take another call, we do know for sure that there are 2 planets in our solar system that are they have things on them, right? They're habitated, if that's the right word. Humans on Earth, robots on Mars. We know for sure there are robots on Mars. So
that's right. And the mermaid people on the moons of Jupiter.
Well, obviously.
That's number 3. Let's not forget. They fought for rights. They have suffrage events. They want to be able to vote.
The mer people did. That sounds right.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just going on a tangent here. There is a super chat I need to get to that I have not read, that the crew is reminding me that I should get to. And it is from Miranda Rensberger. Lovely Miranda Rensberger, given $10, has been a member for 6 months, and says, some flat earthers claim there's another whole civilization on the other side of the ice wall that the government is hiding because reasons. And yeah, that's something I've heard too in regards to the flat earthers. That expedition didn't do jack shit, did it? That didn't convince anybody of anything.
It did convince one, apparently,
really?
but only to the point that they've just gone, well, it doesn't prove that the Earth is a globe, but it does raise more questions for us. So we're wrong about the sun setting and over the Antarctic, but some of us still believe in flat Earth. That's kind of what came out of it.
Okay.
All right, the sun doesn't set, but we still saw the ice wall.
Right. We got another super chat from Nero who gave $2. Nero, you got to contribute to that debt, man. I don't want to be responsible. Okay, like that's just anyway. But they gave a super chat and said, "Forget docs, gamble on Excel competitions in Vegas." Okay. That's a thing, I guess. I don't know about that, but you shouldn't be gambling on anything right now, Nero.
Oh,
that's all I'm saying. But look, and I want to point this out, a special announcement from our executive producer, who has confirmed in chat that they will allow us to have 2 callers on at the same time to hash it out. Okay, so that's an option to both of you, Race, Bannon, and Daniel. Okay, we're putting that out there. We won't be doing a show next week, but week after that, listen, we'll game on.
Kick off the new year with a great double header.
It'll be like Mike Tyson and Jake Paul. Okay, we'll start advertising it everywhere. It'll be awesome.
Yeah.
I'm down for it. Okay, but only if you guys both consent to it. Okay, we're not. I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna have one of you on and then surprise you with the other caller. Okay, I want both of you guys to be comfortable with that arrangement. So just FYI. But that's a thing. That's a thing, and we have the technology. Okay. I know we got some other callers, but man, we are already over time. But hey, guess what? We are going to go to a Discord after show. So if you want to talk to us in the after show, you can do that. It's at china.cc/ACD Discord for that. I want to thank my guest host, Kelley and John, for joining me today for the last show of this year. Thanks so much, guys. Really appreciate it.
It was a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Had a good time.
Super cool. We didn't even get to our funny voicemail. Maybe next year we can get to that. But
we had a lot of great calls.
It was a great end of the year show. I was worried because it's a slower time of year, but man, y'all start popping off towards the end there. It's always great when we can't get to everybody because that means there's a lot of people that want to talk to us, right?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, if you do want to talk to us, we will be going to that Discord in just a moment. But I need to remind you guys about the prompt this week. The prompt this week is going to be, what was the cringiest thing that happened to you in 2024? Again, no political answers. I want it from your personal experience. Leave a comment.
And no deaths.
No deaths. Well, if it's funny, maybe. Can it be funny? Yes. It really can be. Not your thing, Kelley.
My thing was kind of funny when you think about it.
Oh no.
Finding out my mother was a bigamist. That was kind of funny.
That is kind of funny. That's a funny thing to like. I'm glad you could celebrate your mother in that way.
My mom was really awesome. She really was.
I'm happy that you could talk about it in such jovial tones. That is a good positive sign. But anyway, folks, leave your comments below. Of course, if you don't like doing that or you don't feel creative, hitting like or hitting subscribe is also really great. Shout outs to the folks who listen to us on all the audio format only places. You guys are great for that too. And I think that's all I got in the tank this year, guys. You got anything? Final words of wisdom, maybe? Nothing?
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Okay.
Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.
Fuck happy holidays. We're going straight Christmas.
Why did I say that?
Happy holidays.
I said it ironically, so it's okay.
Well, yeah, that's right. This is the last time John the Skeptick will be joining us on the program. Just kidding. You will definitely be seeing him again in the future. And thank you to everybody who's made this year really, really awesome. I'm Objectively Dan. This has been another episode of Truth Wanted. Remember to always keep wanting the truth, and I'll see you next time.
Watch the non-profits and join the hosts in the live chat. Visit tiny.cc/ytnp.